You can share. Share. All right, we'll go ahead and get started. There might be a few folks who come on in a little bit later, but thanks for joining us today. We're excited to share these opportunities with you, especially if you don't know about them at all. And hopefully you'll get a lot of good information from us today. We're gonna go ahead and go to the next slide. So Survivor Link is a program of the Office of Gender-Based Violence in the School of Social Work here at ASU. And we work with community partners to build networks of support for domestic and sexual violence survivors. And we do that in a few ways. One is placing domestic violence advocates in programs across Arizona. The goal is to see an advocate available and accessible in every facet of public service or public life, social service settings. And we do that primarily through these two programs. We promote healthy relationships. You see the logo My Plan there, which is a whole nother webinar if you're interested. And then work to end gender-based violence in the community. We're going to start off, there's a couple distinctions between the two programs, even though they're kind of part of a larger federal program. So broadly speaking, both AmeriCorps and AmeriCorps VISTA are programs of the Corporation of National Community Services on the federal level. And AmeriCorps, the program that Virginia is responsible for, the direct service program, engages students in community service to meet needs. So it's much like if you all host just internships at your organizations. It operates in that much way, but there are some very specific goals related to that. And then the AmeriCorps VISTA program provides a full-time individual for 365 days to do capacity building and program development in your organization. So you can see the list of kind of what AmeriCorps Direct Service members, AmeriCorps VISTA members are in the context of the Survivor Link program. And I'll let Virginia talk a little bit about the AmeriCorps side.
Yes. So the majority of our direct service members are enrolled at ASU as students and are actually fulfilling an internship requirement as part of their program of study. The great number of them are social work students, and that's because it's just such a nice fit since social work majors have to complete an internship as part of that program of study, although we do accept students from other disciplines, such as psychology, criminal justice, women's studies, just any variety. We're happy to take any student that is interested in learning about intervening and preventing gender-based violence. These AmeriCorps members do work directly with clients. They do 5 to 25 hours of service a week for 9 months. We have 95 scholarship slots available. So over the course of the year, we like to onboard the majority of them in fall, but we can onboard in spring and summer as well. Their tasks, their everyday tasks, their primary assignments are given by the site supervisor or the field instructor at the actual program site. We do add in some domestic violence and gender-based violence related activities into that, but they definitely have the primary, the bulk of their primary duties are assigned by their site supervisors. We do have the shared goal of implementing intensive advocacy with survivors, the My Plan online safety planning tool, introducing that, whether it's to the program, whether it's to their colleagues or the clients themselves, and providing healthy relationship information in whatever medium works best for that site.
So on the AmeriCorps VISTA side, we have full-time members, and we have 12 slots. So you'll hear references to members or slots a lot related to these programs. The AmeriCorps Direct Service program has 95 slots, and the VISTA program has 12. And the capacity building piece is really sort of the broad goal of the VISTAs. They're committed to 365 days, and the tasks are assigned or created by you all or your programs, and then we work with you to ensure that the tasks and the activities that you're requesting of the VISTA align with the federal goals of reducing poverty, providing access to housing, and then specific outcomes might evolve year to year, but there are some broad goals that have to align with the federal program. So we're going to dive a little bit into the VISTA program, and then we'll switch it over. VISTA members, again, help with capacity building. And what I mean by capacity building is creating or investing in something that will be sustainable beyond the service of the VISTA. So some examples for VISTA assignments could be helping with curriculum development or revisions, helping with social media and communications plans, or helping with, if you have a new program that you're interested in designing, like a youth program or anything related to that, they can help with program design, and those types of things that are helping your infrastructure. And again, something that's sustainable beyond the VISTA service. Okay, so there's a couple things to consider with VISTA, and that is what the VISTA member expectations are, and then what the site expectations are. So what you all might be responsible for if you're hosting a VISTA. So VISTA member expectations, completing the objectives and activities related to the VISTA assignment description, which we refer to as the VAD. So sometimes if you hear us dropping some acronyms like VAD, that's what that is. And it's essentially your VISTA's job description. So they're responsible for completing those activities. They also participate in required VISTA meetings and trainings, and I'll let Jillian talk a little bit more about that requirement.
Yeah, so in my role as the VISTA leader, I'm more of a support for the VISTA members. So we will do like monthly meetings. I check in with them. I'll check in with the site supervisors, which would be yourselves. And just in general, like kind of clerical stuff, just like taking time off and stuff like that. To return to the VAD, what we're really looking for on your guys' side for these volunteer descriptions is, because these volunteers it's a year-long kind of service that they are devoting. So we're really looking for a specific job that they have ownership of that job, and they have the authority to kind of think and not just we're not looking for like a clerical position or something like that. We really want to see something that they can measure throughout their year of service and kind of be proud of it. That's really important, because these volunteers do not, they get a living stipend, but it's by no means an actual like income. Yeah.
Great. Do you want to talk a little bit about the monthly progress reports too?
Yeah.
You kind of.
Yeah, definitely. So with these monthly progress reports, like I said, so with the VAD, what we want to be seeing that these performance measures that we would outline with the VAD are on track. So the VISTA members would send us the monthly progress report and check on the actual specific activities of their VAD, so that they're ultimately going to fulfill their expectations.
And then the last one is adhering to CMCS, the federal agency, adhering to the guidelines, including avoiding all prohibited activities, and we'll talk a little bit more about those in a minute. Essentially, so site expectations, let me go there first, would be that you all basically create the VISTA assignment description. So you're all, you have an idea in mind. We have a template that you can work from to create that VISTA assignment agreement or description. And then again, we work with you to ensure that it aligns with federal guidelines. You would be providing all day-to-day supervisions through basically assignment of a site supervisor. So whomever in your agency would be the person providing that day-to-day supervision would be your site supervisor. And that can change depending on your project. So, you know, it doesn't have to be anyone in particular. It doesn't have to be the executive director necessarily. It's just whomever would be responsible for monitoring that specific project. We do request a $10,000 site support payment to ASU, and that is because this is a human capital grant. So ASU doesn't get any money up front, essentially. We find these folks and the federal government is responsible for paying them. So we offset our costs to the feds with the site support payments that you all provide. And we can negotiate how that gets paid. So that's doesn't have to be a one-time payment. It can be broken out. We want to make it easiest for you all so that you can have the benefit of having a VISTA at your site. All sites are required to attend a site supervisor training. Historically, that hasn't been a formal training. We've come to your site and provided about an hour and a half to 2 hours worth of training as it relates to being a site supervisor. And I suspect that model will continue. So we'll come to you and do that on-site site supervisor training. And just one other request is that whomever your site supervisor is, we do ask that they've been in their position at least 6 months prior to taking on supervising a VISTA. And then we do ask sites to sign on a memorandum of agreement, similar to an MOU, but where all of our responsibilities, including ours here at ASU, are outlined. So we all sign that. So for the VISTA, how do you apply, or how do you get a VISTA? So first step would be to email me or Julian, and we'll give you his email here a little later on, to express your interest in hosting a VISTA member, given the site expectations, if you can meet all of those. We would send you the site application and the template VISTA assignment description, the VAD, that you would complete. Julian actually interviews candidates on a regular basis for placement in organizations. And I think right now, honestly, I think we have about four potential VISTA members ready for placement. So the sooner you can complete the site application and VISTA assignment agreement, or VISTA assignment description, I keep doing that, we potentially would have someone ready for you to interview and take on. Sign the memorandum of agreement. Sorry about that. And then we figure out the site support payment, and then you would welcome your new VISTA. So there are federal onboarding guidelines. So for folks who would be prepared to take on a VISTA member, you could have one start as early as August if you express your interest and we get everything ready to go by July 30th. This is the deadline. Otherwise, we have to look at the next onboarding period. But like I said, we have about 4 folks who are ready to go. So you could potentially have someone starting in those positions mid-August. And I am going to defer to Dr. Brown on this piece.
Great. And I'm just going to add a couple more things actually about the VISTA grant that I think are important for you guys to understand. They're actually managed and hired directly from the federal government. So one of the advantages is that you would essentially negotiate with us the VAD, the VISTA assignment description. We would set things up as a partnership, but as the sponsor and the host, we essentially oversee and are responsible for all of the federal compliance. And we've designed the program and set up extra assurances to make sure that we're meeting our obligations and needs. But you essentially get a full-time support or someone who would act as a staff and a real asset to your program without the requirement.
To Rachel.
Sorry, can we have someone? I think we need to put you on mute for just a minute. But you would essentially have this full-time support without the obligations or the requirements for embedding them financially. So we would essentially set them up and procure the payments directly from the federal government. And also to that end, Jesse mentioned that this is a human capital grant. That portion, the site support payment, actually goes for our cost share. So we are charged for hosting the grant, and then we pay for 25% of the members, and the federal government pays for the other portion. And we have very strict guidelines that we take seriously so far as collecting site support payments to support our ongoing initiatives in the community and to support the members, but we never use it for salary for staff, and it has nothing to do with the administrative costs of the university. And you can imagine the hoops that we jump through to get that going, but it's here. So just so you know, your money is being, essentially it's reciprocated back into the program. That's the only place that it goes. So I just wanted to make sure everyone understood that as well. So this is just one example of some of the fantastic work our VISTA team in 2018 will be doing. All of our VISTAs have really unique and specific assignments based off of their site, but they also meet quarterly to come together for trainings, and Julian sets up, and we think about professional development and personal skills that they can take with them after the time that they've left the program. Then we have shared performance measures or shared goals. And this year, our shared goal was an organizational assessment. And for most of you whom I've met, I would have mentioned my plan at least 20 times in the course of our interactions. That's our online safety planning intervention. I'm really quite gung-ho about it because I like the idea of seeing evidence-based research come to action in our shelters and programs. And the organizational assessment this year, we're having all of our VISTA team members, they're going to contact every program, every DB program in the state to see if they would host a focus group or send 1 or 2 staff for an interview. And then the VISTA will do a very informal discussion with them about what they like about my plan, how it could be improved, what the functions of the app are that are friendly for work as a case manager. And then additionally, they would find out what it would take for you to shift your program model to using the online safety plan. And this is mostly the feedback we've received thus far, is that there's just a few function issues in the app that we're in the process of changing and fixing to make it easier for organizations. So again, this is just one example of some of the things that we present to the VISTAs as a challenge or something they can huddle around together, but they primarily work with your site on site, helping to meet your objectives. But I, being trained as a researcher, like to think that this cumulative effort that we all put in together, where we bring our heads around one social problem, will progress the kinds of things we can bring domestic violence survivors all across the country. So I think, honestly, in Arizona, we have such an impressive and professional network of services that we have a real advantage, and we have an opportunity to really refine and define how evidence-based interventions look. The VISTAs and our AmeriCorps members as well, they really give us this ongoing conduit or an opportunity to see that research come into action in sometimes smaller ways, sometimes, you know, large longitudinal studies, but it's that ongoing conversation with what people are really doing in the field, what practitioners find to be useful, that is, I think, most exciting about our program. So expect an email or a phone call from one of our VISTA members in the next month, and this would be an excellent opportunity for you to meet with one of them and get a chance to interact. Ask them what they thought of their service. And of course, I would brag and say that we have the most impressive candidates and the best team, but I think you'd find the same if you had the chance to meet with them. So that's all I'll say about that.
Thank you.
Cut me off before I keep going.
That was good.
All right.
So there are some requirements in terms of, you know, I guess requirements. There's really no better word for it. For the VISTAs that we recruit here through Survivor Link, we do ask that they all have a bachelor's degree, that they have an interest in domestic violence, sexual violence issues, better even if they have some experience. That they have the capability of living within the program parameters, like the living stipend that Julian talked about. That sometimes is the biggest challenge for our VISTA members. And we actually do encourage the sites, so you all, to provide additional incentives to your VISTA members because they are not earning necessarily a livable salary. They're gaining experience, and they're getting a lot more out of their service. So you can do things like provide bus passes. We have one program who's willing to do food because they have an on-site kitchen. So there's things that you can do to make your site more attractive even to VISTA members, and we do encourage that. And we can talk through those specifics more if you do have an interest in hosting. All of our VISTAs have a desire to grow personally and professionally, and a lot have an express interest in the fields of domestic and sexual violence or social work. And then we do prefer folks who have experience working with vulnerable populations more broadly. So hopefully you've jotted down any questions you might have. We'll get to questions in a little bit, but for now I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Virginia.
Great. Hello again. So let's talk about direct service members. These AmeriCorps members provide those services within nonprofit and social service settings. Of course, our focus is on preventing, intervening, and helping people in the recovery of sexual and domestic violence. All of our members receive training through the coalition and through ASU School of Social Work that helps to prepare them to be victim advocates and provide services. So our goals through our Survivor Link program is to address domestic violence in the community, of course, like we said before, by placing advocates in every nonprofit across the state. So that goes beyond just what would be considered traditional domestic violence programs or organizations. We believe that if you work with humans, you will be and are working with people who have experienced or survived violence within the context of relationships and families. And so we would like to think that there's a need for every organization to have at least one person on site that can act as an advocate to help support your clients. We do that by verifying these AmeriCorps interns as advocates, like we said, through the course that we co-facilitate with the coalition to provide that 40-hour training. We've kind of expanded that into an academic course so that they're getting both the content and the theory and the research behind it so that our students are very well prepared. We educate the community on healthy relationships and what consent looks like. Each member, we hope, will work with at least 4 to 5 clients that have been affected by DV through offering intensive advocacy. We want to increase accessibility to safety planning and promote My Plan among the nonprofits in the community, those we partner with and others. More broadly, for the Office of Gender-Based Violence, our goals with this grant are to enroll 95 student members, with at least half of them being social work students. We'd like for 5 programs that we work with, and I think that's a lowball number. I think we can aim a little higher, but at least 5 of our programs to adopt My Plan as their kind of organizational policy. So whether you're providing therapy services through your organization, whether you're providing medical services or any other kind of social services or human services, we would like to think that you have a need for an organizational policy around domestic violence. And so through adopting My Plan as kind of your go-to, that you have a real solid evidence-based intervention to be able to offer. Our members are required to participate in a service day. We generally have one on or around September 11th and MLK Day. So these are days that our members come together as a group and we engage in some kind of community activity that helps to better whatever it is that we've chosen for that year. This past year, we organized the mural painting in Maryvale, and our members signed up for different days to go participate in the painting of the mural, and then we were all present on the day of the unveiling. So that was kind of an exciting venture for us. We also would like to see our members enroll and successfully complete the undergrad and or graduate certificate in domestic violence. So this is an academic certificate that's conferred upon graduation and just indicates that they have spent a significant amount of their time researching and learning about and becoming knowledgeable about gender-based violence. So our interns commit to a minimum of 300 hours of service. That's a minimum, and that is not the majority of our students. The majority of our student members serve 450 hours over the course of the academic year or over the course of 2 semesters. And that number fits in nicely with the School of Social Work requirement of 480 hours. So the 450 of those 480 are counted as AmeriCorps service hours. And that just is a nice complement for our students. The 675-hour commitment is for students who are generally graduate students and are interested in doing research in addition to their service out in the community. And that research is done in partnership with a faculty member, and it runs about 10 hours per week that the student is committing to doing that research activity. And that is on top of their commitment of service. One of the other requirements is that we have site approval. So that depends on whether or not you're taking social work students or students of other majors. That can look different depending upon the different requirements. These student interns do go through a comprehensive background check. They are required to uphold AmeriCorps standards and to stay in compliance with the prohibited activities that, again, we're going to get to shortly. They need to verify as a domestic violence advocate through taking that foundation course that we discussed, the one that's done in conjunction with the coalition. For graduate students, it's 545. For undergrads, it's 416. They report their time using the Encore timekeeping system. It's an online system where the member goes in weekly and indicates how many hours they've worked for the week or completed service for the week, and also then indicates the type of service that they provided.
Yeah. And so that we wouldn't be able to sign in or access anything if we don't renew. Yeah. I was like really trying to, because he was.
And so, I'm sorry, I'm gonna go back here. That would also then require that the site supervisor goes in occasionally, frequently, and approves the time, just kind of reviews and makes sure that that time is accurate. We do ask that our members wear AmeriCorps gear. We can provide lanyards and pins if wearing the t-shirt doesn't fit in with your site dress code or standards, but we certainly do ask that they can be able to be identified as AmeriCorps members. And something I did forget to add on to this slide that kind of goes hand in hand with that is that we would provide you one of these posters, as you can see in the photo, and ask that you display that somewhere so that people would know that there are AmeriCorps members serving there. Again, the interns need to participate in the National Day of Service, and then at the end of their term of service, they complete an exit interview within the AmeriCorps federal portal. Oops, I'm clicking all over the place here. All right, so what are your commitments as a site that's hosting a member intern or student intern? We would ask that you sign our Memorandum of Understanding. It basically outlines the prohibited activities and the support that we're going to be providing you, as well as indicates what's expected of the students as far as their conduct goes. We ask that you also adhere to the prohibited activities for the AmeriCorps member and not request that they engage in any of those activities, that you assign a site supervisor, and that you be able to approve the member hours in the Encore timekeeping system. So I wanted to provide you with a list of our current partners so that you can see that you will be in good company by joining on as a partner of the Office of Gender-Based Violence in our AmeriCorps programs. So this will be available for you to peruse at your leisure. As you can see, we have many domestic violence and gender-based violence specific organizations, but also some other service providers, elementary schools, high schools, and government agencies that our members serve in. Okay, we didn't wear the prohibited activities.
I think I had them in my notes. So
Oh, okay.
and I skimmed over them. So the prohibited activities, there are some similarities between the AmeriCorps and the AmeriCorps VISTA program in that they cannot engage in any political activities, including lobbying or legislative work or systems level policy work. However, and for VISTAs, they actually are not, they're prohibited from engaging in direct service. So that's why there's that key distinction between the AmeriCorps Direct Service Program and the AmeriCorps VISTA program. The VISTA program is designed for infrastructure and capacity building. The AmeriCorps Direct Service Program is exactly that. It's an intern. They fill your needs in that internship capacity, which can include direct service and or policy advocacy. Also, I think there's a prohibition on fundraising efforts, that they're not permitted to engage in fundraising, and including VISTAs, they wouldn't be able to serve as your fundraiser if that was, something that you were looking for. So that would be a prohibited activity for a VISTA.
An important point of clarification: they can engage in fundraising so long as they're not given the provision that it's a requirement of their position to raise enough funds to cover the cost of their position. Okay. Our AmeriCorps Direct Service Grant, there is no cost for you. We actually, ASU shoulders all of the cost share on that. Our VISTA program, we do ask for site shares or site support payments to cover the cost share. However, the real intent of the law, the spirit, is they don't want you to get an AmeriCorps wing of your nonprofit running is self-sustaining, or like essentially where you're replacing staff. They really want this to be an opportunity for your organization to grow. They don't want you replacing positions, but it's absolutely within the parameters of most VISTAs to do some level of community engagement through organizing volunteers, getting people to come through the door and support the organization, or organizing your philanthropic, thank you. They can organize those efforts. They just can't be given that requirement as a portion of their VISTA assignment description. So there is some fine tweaking on those federal guidelines.
And that would be something we would just work out through, I think, the BAD with you. So thanks. Yeah, I skipped that in my notes. So with that, so we're happy to take any specific questions now that you may have.
Well, I do want to add in a couple other prohibited activities for the AmeriCorps Direct Service. We do also have the caveat that our members should not be promoting a specific religious or spiritual kind of ideology, should not be engaging in religious activity with the members. Certainly we encourage people to maintain their own belief systems and to practice as they believe, but as part of their service, that should not be a part of their service. And then the very specific prohibition of engaging in the referral of the education about facilitating of abortion. So that is a very specific federal prohibition, that those activities should not be a part of the direct service members' activities or client services. Now I'm done.
Okay, no, thank you.
Yeah, we offer site trainings, and we have opportunities all year for you to have contact with our staff. So should you ever have a question or you think you're in prohibited activity territory, we would always just encourage you to reach out and find a way around it, or just ensure that that's an approved activity for the AmeriCorps member. No politics, no proselytizing. It's not terribly complicated, I think.
Yeah.
All right, now we'll stop. Now we'll take questions.
For real this time.
Great. So we'll unmute everybody.
I was going to do that when I totally screwed these lines up.
No, that's okay. All right. We will unmute you all so that you can ask questions. We can also pull up, the chat is up actually. So feel free to ask away, clarify away, and those of you who maybe have had experience with us, maybe offer in some of your insights.
Yeah.
Don't everybody jump in at once.
Mm-hmm.
And then
I heard someone for a second. I don't know if they were trying to ask a question.
Well, we are super thorough.
We must have covered everything. I think is there, I know Jillian added
Yep.
one more slide.
Okay. Nope,
Nope.
that was it.
So yeah, you're always welcome to email any or all of us if you have questions that come up after you've gotten off the webinar and maybe you need to have some conversations internally. We did record the webinar, so you're always welcome. We'll send the link out. You can go back and listen if there are a couple questions maybe that you heard and want to check back in the webinar about. But we are available by email. My email is on one of the slides, jessie@asu.edu. Here we go. Virgin is going to type in some email addresses for you to get a hold of us if you have questions or if you have an expressed interest in either program.
I could spell my own name.
If you aren't on the mailing
Your
list,
J Cash, my
Julie
friend.
Greenberg can add you to our mailing list as well.
Free?
And we try not to bombard you with info. We send out the mailing, we send out quarterly updates just about things happening in our own office, remind people of what's available or upcoming for our AmeriCorps positions, and any trainings, because we've been, just this past year, we started a new initiative. We're offering free community trainings for those programs who are participating with us.
All right. Thank you all again for joining us, and we look forward to working with you in the upcoming year.